The early 90s of gaming was a decade to remark. This was when the arms race of gaming technology was at its all-time high, with new high-end consoles and games being made every year with some new groundbreaking gameplay style. One of these being Capcom's Mega Man for the NES. While the first game didn't have a lot of attention, it was its sequel and the third game that put Mega Man into the spotlight, being one of the four main faces of the NES alongside Mario, Zelda, and Metroid. But then, the market was flipped on its head entirely when Sega came out with their new console, the Sega Genesis, a 16-bit console capable of better sound quality, visuals, and game performance, which prompted Nintendo to come up with their successor to the NES with the Super Nintendo, their own 16-bit console, which swiftly followed with new installments in Mario, Zelda, and Metroid. But Capcom stuck with their NES for a while, going all the way up to Mega Man 6, which is way more games than Mario had at the time. But eventually, Capcom had to make a decision to move to the next generation of consoles, choosing to stick with their Nintendo guns by moving to the SNES, although the first three Mega Man games got ported to the Genesis called Mega Man The Wily Wars, although that's a tale for another day. With the new hardware, Capcom had settled on making their first SNES title being a successor to the classic Mega Man series, a perfect way for them to boost into the next generation of tech, and in 1993 we finally got one of my new favorite game franchises, Mega Man X. Before you dive into the game, you're greeted with a main menu with the obvious start button, a password for if you wanted to save your progress, and an options menu, which at the time was huge considering you always had to make do with the controls that a game would give you. Did the older SNES and Sega Genesis games where you had a locked control scheme. In modern gaming, that isn't a big of a deal, primarily because most modern games nowadays give you settings to always tinker with, especially controls, but for 1993 Saturn, this was a good improvement. Unlike the classic Mega Man games, when you'd start off, you'd be greeted by a level select and you had to choose which of the 6 robot masters you wanted to fight. Instead, you get thrown into an introduction stage to get you up to speed with control. If you're any familiar with the gameplay loop of Mega Man, then you know that the trick of the trade is to line your shots up with your enemies by jumping and shooting with precise timing if you want to get through without losing a life. The same applies to the X series, since the Mega Man formula isn't one to change that much unless you count Legends, X7, X Command Mission, and the other games that I couldn't give more of a shit to talk about. I'm looking at you, Mega Man X Dive. The opening level, since it's an introduction, is pretty easy with it being a linear path, but I'd say it's a good tutorial. Something with modern games is that there's always a control screen that pops up to teach you the game mechanics, and while it's pretty justified for some games, in the early 90s you just had to figure out how to play or else you're not going anywhere. Once you get a hang of it, you'll begin to learn how X controls. You learn that you can charge your buster to do more damage, X's maximum jump range, and how much damage you can take before dying. And with defeating this mini-boss, you learn to exercise the ability to climb up walls. Towards the end of the stage, you're faced with a boss that you can't do any damage to, in which you just get your ass cuffed immediately, and you think, what did I do wrong? Until you end up getting some dialogue of the guy that just whooped your ass, which afterwards, you get one of the most infamous character intros in gaming history. You learn that the guy that just handed your ass to you is Vile, and the guy that just saved you is Zero. The whole plot of Mega Man X is centered around how a group of rebels that are in a rebellion against humans, which are labeled as Mavericks. The leader of the Mavericks, who is the former Maverick Hunter commander, named Sigma, do not laugh at the name, you brain-rotted fucks. He was the one who hit Maverick initially and inspired or manipulated 8 other Maverick Hunters into joining his rebellion against the human race. Zero here tells you that he is going to try and find Sigma's base of operations, which after you boot it to a level select screen against the older Mega Mans. This is where the game truly picks up. A total of 8 Mavericks for you to select. The roster containing Chill Penguin, Spark Mandrill, Flame Mammoth, Storm Eagle, Boomer Kuwanger, Sting Chameleon, Armored Armadillo, and Launch Octopus. I like the character design in this game. Before, the names of characters would be their gimmick with man at the end, but with Mega Man X, the bosses are a mix of some form of element animal, which I personally adore. The order of stages that you choose to attempt doesn't matter, as is the classic series, but here, I'd say for the first stage in any run, go for Chill Penguin stage, since it's the easiest in the game, but also where you get an essential to the X gameplay style, which is a mainstay for games to come. It's the dash. Scattered around 4 stages are capsules left by X's creator, Dr. Thomas Light. Inside the capsules are upgrades that X can use to aid him in battle. For Chill Penguin, you get the dash as stated before, which allows X to dash underground for faster ground movement and has increased jump length when combining a jump and a dash along with your shots to doing more damage while using it. Chill Penguin as a boss is pretty easy when you learn its patterns. Use the wall and dash jump away if you get cornered, and rely on using your buster since this is the only weapon you have at that point. After you beat Chill Penguin, you get a screen showing what new weapon you acquired. Like classic Mega Man, X is given the ability to copy the abilities of foes he defeats. For Chill Penguin, you get Shotgun Ice. It makes easy work of smaller enemies, but at this point, I'd recommend saving your ammo and Shotgun Ice for his next stage, Spark Mandrill. His stage is gimmick as well. Electricity with a lot of electrical hazards relying about. But boy, do I have a huge nitpick about this stage. In a few stages, namely the opening stage, Spark Mandrill and Locked Octopus, to call it a few, have a mini-boss halfway through the stage. And while this is a neat concept to kind of break up the action with an obstacle for you to deal with, but the one in Spark Mandrill's stage is just overly annoying, and I just hate dealing with it. Now, there is a way to cheat this fight, but we'll get to that later. But now, if you're playing this in the order I've set up, then this is going to be pretty tough for you. When you eventually reach Spark Mandrill, you'll learn something very interesting. As I stated before, you would want to conserve your shotgun ice ammo for this stage. This is where it comes into play. Every boss has a weakness to another Maverick's weapon. For Spark Mandrill, he is weak to Chill Penguin's weapon, so every time you hit him, he gets stunned and frozen momentarily. Now, the way you can abuse this is by consistently spamming the weapon after his iframes of his break-in animation ends, keeping him stun locked and unable to do anything, and you can see the fruits of this when you pull this trick off. When you first take control of X, you'll notice how small his health gauge is compared to classic Mega Man. In every stage you can find a heart tank which will increase X's max health, letting you take more hits before eventually dying. The way these are placed have a heavy emphasis on completing some stages and then backtracking to another to acquire an item with the new weapon you got. If you want to learn more about how to play through X1 without doing a lot of backtracking, then I suggest go watching Jay's reviews, Mega Man X1 guide if you want to have a run without going back to stages you already have played. But I'm not doing that here since this is more or less a review of how I play through Mega Man X, so yeah. Go watch Jay's review video if you want to that or just stick around here. Please stick around here, I need the views. Before I did this review, I would normally go into Storm Eagle stage following Spark Mandrill, but I would recommend doing Flame Mammoth since you'll need this weapon to get a heart tank back in Chill Penguin stage if you're going by the order that I do. Back in Flame Mammoth stage, following the order I've done, you may notice that below some of the conveyor belts in the stage is solid ground for you to walk on to avoid obstacles, enemies, and other hazards. This is because depending if you did Chill Penguin first, the snow from his stage will go on to Flame Mammoth stage and cover the lava under the conveyor belt and a layer of ice for you to walk on, which, if you keep walking, you'll find a heart tank under that. This is for a handful of stages that will have some different visual or physical effects, like if you beat Storm Eagle and then do Spark Mandrill, the power is off, and this mini-boss becomes less annoying to deal with. Storm Eagle is next after Flame Mammoth, and his stage is an airship out sky stage, and I'm a sucker for these. I mean, high altitude action is a guilty pleasure of mine in games. In this stage, you'll find the next armor upgrade for which is X Head, letting him smash your blocks and not him taking any damage from the rock that fall on Sting Chameleon stage. This is a necessary upgrade because if you remember back at Flame Mammoth stage where these were blocks that seemed out of place, but with this upgrade and a well-timed dash jump, smashing to the blocks to get to the next upgrade, the Buster upgrade. With his upgrade, X gets the ability to have a third charge shot for his regular Buster and him being able to charge his special weapons, which brings us back to when I was talking about how you could cheese the boss in Spark Mandrill stage. This is what I mean. Let's say you decided to skip Spark Mandrill and do Storm Eagle to get the head parts and then Flame Mammoth for the arm parts. Now you'll get to do that mini boss with 1, 2, 3 hits, and that's it with Storm Eagle's charge shot. And that is fucking amazing. Next up, Boomer Kuwanger. His stage can be a bit annoying to deal with if you don't know what you're doing, aka me on my first run through the game, but if you use Storm Eagle's charge shot, you can get through with little to no difficulty. Boomer Kuwanger actual fight can be pretty annoying if you don't know his pattern since he teleports around a lot, and if you don't have his weakness open, then your best bet is to use the base buster since it has a consistent fire rate and isn't going to cost you that much. Boomer Kuwanger's weapon is actually used for getting other items like sub-tanks. There are 4 sub-tanks in total in the game, and if you're at max health and pick up an HP tank, that goes to your sub-tank. So if you get low on health, you can pop it and get health back depending on how much is in the sub-tank itself. Although, fair warning, it uses your entire tank if you use it, so I conserve it for when you're on the brink of getting dunked on. Which ties us into the next stage, Sting Chameleon. And this is a pretty fun level if I do say so myself. I'd argue it's my second favorite level right under Storm Eagle stage. This is the stage where you get X's final armor piece, the chest party, where once you get it, all attacks you take now do 50% less damage. Sting Chameleon has what we like to call Spark Mandrill syndrome. It's a term used to refer to bosses that can get instantly stun locked by their weakness, like Spark Mandrill did back in his stage. It's kind of comical that this carries into later games, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. Next up, Launch Octopus, and again, a water stage that is actually enjoyable. I'm looking at you, Labyrinth over Sonic 1. This is how you do a water level in a platform. No stupid slowdown, higher jump radius, and less drag while underwater. With Launch Octopus Divinity, you can go back to Sting Chameleon stage where if you drop down to a certain point, the water from the Launch Octopus stage will actually flood part of this, and with good timing you can jump across the chasm, and what you know? A heart tank sitting right there for me. That is nice. Armored Armadillo's up, and this stage is okay to say the least. I'm not a big fan of it, but it's not a bad stage either. It's like a midpoint stage that isn't too much of a pain in the ass like others, but it isn't necessarily brain dead easy either. Now it's time for the final act of the game with Sigma's Fortress. These stages are sort of the final testament for the final boss to see how you've gotten better and stronger since you first started. Throughout the first 3 Sigma stages is a boss rush with every Maverick beforehand, but most if not all become a joke since you have all of their weaknesses and can easily dispose of them without an issue. Once you get far enough into the first Sigma stage, you come face to face with Vile, who you may remember from the opening stage, who kicked your ass. You shit talk to you before Zero pulls up and then chases after him, and after some noise can be made out to Buster shots and Ride Armor steps, you go in to find Vile using another Ride Armor and Zero in a fucking cage. This is another case where you can't damage Vile at all and you have to let him take you down to trigger a cutscene. This time, Zero jumps out of the capsule and uses his own body to blow up the Ride Armor that Vile was using. Which now, if you get to the actual Vile boss, then it's dirt fucking easy. I mean, seriously, no wonder why he needed the Ride Armor to kick your ass before if he was doing shit like this. Depending on if you get their arm parts or not, Zero will give you haste, which will serve the same purpose as the other Buster upgrade, which is nice since it is essential, but I'd say you're better off getting it from Flame Mammoth stage. There are 2 other bosses you have to face in the other 2 Sigma stages, the first being the stupid wall and the other being this weird fucking thing. I don't even know what it is, it looks like a fucking car. But now it's time for the final battle with the 4th and final Sigma stage. You climb up this tower and you're met face to face with Sigma. So first you fight Sigma's dog, and he can be pretty annoying to deal with, but as long as you dash at the right times you can get through with little to no difficulty. As for Sigma himself, the best way to approach the boss is to climb onto the wall and wait for Sigma to jump up to your level, and lining a charge up with him to deal damage. Rinse and repeat that process until he's defeated. Now his second phase is where it becomes bullshit. His head goes into a fucking furry, and this becomes a nightmare for first-time players. The best way I'd say to evade Sigma is to just dash during his energy ball cycle to avoid it and just duck under his hands while he's shooting fire, but be cautious because at a random point, his hands will shoot off electricity. By the way, before I forget, this entire boss is based on RNG. If you're lucky, you can get through without Sigma shooting from his mouth once. This was the cause of many deaths, since you need to have a good reaction time and look for the telegraph before his attack begins. To even do damage to Sigma, you need to use Armored Armadillo's weapon, Rolling Shield, with precise time to actually hit him, since the only point you can damage him is his head. Not the big one, the little one, and that big one. Once you defeat Sigma, you exit his fortress as X gazes on the collapsing building, reflecting on why he chose to fight before eventually moving on and leaving the area, heading back into the city for repairs. You get a neat little roll call of all the enemies, Mavericks, and other characters that you've seen throughout the game. It's definitely a nice little touch. After the credits roll, you get a not so inconspicuous message that Sigma is actually still alive and is planning a revenge scheme against X. But that is a tale for another day. This concludes the Mega Man X review. I got into the series recently because of my friends that are big fans of the series, which eventually led me to getting the game myself, and I had a blast. Definitely one I'll revisit and cherish a lot. And as always, drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more reviews by me, then just subscribe and turn on the bell. And as always, see you around.